Captain Lee Hyun sat in his command chair, staring at the message that had just arrived on his personal terminal. The bridge of the UES Indomitable hummed quietly around him, the soft beeping of instruments mixing with the gentle conversations of his crew. Everything seemed normal, but something about this message made his stomach twist. "Commander Park Sol," he called to his first officer, "come take a look at this." Park Sol walked over from her station, her boots clicking softly on the metal deck. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she read the message over his shoulder, her eyebrows went up. "The Galactic Science Consortium wants to examine our ship?" she asked. "That's unusual." The message was very formal and polite. It came from High Examiner Vextal of the Quellian Empire, one of the most advanced alien races in the galaxy. The Quellians were known for their love of science and knowledge. They had been in space for thousands of years, while humans had only been exploring beyond Earth for about 200 years. The message explained that the consortium was creating a complete database of all spacefaring civilizations. They wanted to study the military technology of every species to better understand how different races approached warfare and defense. It was, they claimed, purely for academic purposes. They say they're particularly interested in human military development. Hyun read aloud. "They call us a curious anomaly," Park Sol frowned. "Anomaly? What do they mean by that?" Hyun scrolled down to read more. The Quellians explained that most species either developed advanced technology through thousands of years of peaceful growth, or they conquered other species and stole their technology. Humans seemed different. In just 2 centuries, they had developed sophisticated weapons and military tactics, while also making incredible advances in science, medicine, and engineering. "They want to understand how we did it so quickly," Hyun said. "They're asking permission to bring a team aboard to examine our systems and interview our crew." Lieutenant Kim Tae looked up from the engineering station. He was young but brilliant, the kind of person who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "Captain, doesn't this seem a bit strange?" "I mean, why now?" "What do you mean?" Park Sol asked. Kim Tae scratched his head. "Well, we've been part of the galactic community for 50 years now. If they wanted to study us for academic reasons, why wait until now? And why ask to examine a military vessel instead of a science ship?" Before anyone could answer, another message arrived. This one came directly from Earth Command. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, looking tired and serious. "Captain Hyun," the Admiral said, "I'm sure you've received the request from the Galactic Science Consortium. After much discussion, we've decided to approve it." Hyun felt his jaw tighten. He didn't like this at all. The Admiral continued, "I know you have concerns, but we can't afford to appear hostile or secretive. Humanity is still new to galactic politics. We need to maintain good relationships with the established powers." "Sir," Hyun said, "with respect, this feels like more than just academic interest." "Perhaps," the Admiral replied, "but sometimes we have to take calculated risks. The consortium has requested that you meet them at Neutral Station Gamma 7 in the Vega system. You'll allow their team to examine your ship for no more than 3 days. Show them what we're comfortable sharing, but use your judgment about classified systems." After the Admiral signed off, the bridge fell quiet. Everyone knew this wasn't really a choice. When Earth Command gave an order, you followed it, even if it felt wrong. Dr. Yoon Na entered the bridge carrying a tablet full of medical data. She was the ship's chief medical officer, and also their expert on alien biology. She had studied every known species in the galaxy, learning their weaknesses and strengths. "Captain," she said, "I've been researching the species that will be examining our ship. It's not just the Quellians. Representatives from 5 major galactic powers will be there." She showed him the list on her tablet. Besides the Quellians, there would be Bruthans, Etherians, members of the Hive Collective, and Depth Dwellers. It was like a who's who of galactic military power. "That's quite a gathering for an academic study," Park Sol observed. Dr. Yoon Na nodded. "The Bruthans are particularly interesting. They're a warrior culture that respects only strength. They don't usually participate in scientific studies unless there's a military reason." Sergeant Major Choi Bo walked onto the bridge just as she finished speaking. He was a mountain of a man who led the ship's Marine contingent. His job was to think about fighting and how to win battles. "Did someone mention the Bruthans?" he asked. "Those guys only care about one thing, figuring out how to beat their enemies. If they're coming to look at our ship, they're not here to admire our engineering." Captain Hyun stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars outside. His reflection stared back at him, a man in his 40s with gray starting to show in his hair. He had been in the military his entire adult life, and his instincts were screaming that this was a trap, but orders were orders. "Lieutenant Kim," he said, "start preparing for inspection. Hide anything that's classified above their clearance level. Make sure our guests see impressive technology, but not our best technology." "Yes, sir," Kim replied. "Should I disable any of our defensive systems?" "Absolutely not," Hyun said firmly. "In fact, make sure everything is working perfectly. If this is what I think it is, we'll need every advantage we can get." Commander Park Sol stepped up beside him. "Captain, what do you think this really is?" Hyun was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars. "I think someone in the galaxy is getting nervous about humans. We've won a few conflicts that we should have lost. We've expanded into systems that other species thought were too dangerous. Maybe we've made them uncomfortable. So they want to figure out how to beat us," Park Sol concluded. "That's what I would do," Hyun admitted. "If I was worried about a new player in the game, I'd want to know their strengths and weaknesses before they became too powerful to stop." Dr. Yoon Na looked up from her tablet. "Captain, I'd like permission to observe the alien team closely during their visit. If they're planning something hostile, their behavior might give them away." "Granted," Hyun said. "Everyone stay alert during this inspection. Be polite, be helpful, but watch everything they do and everything they ask about." The Indomitable began its journey toward Neutral Station Gamma 7, carrying its crew toward what might be the most dangerous diplomatic mission in human history. None of them knew that in just a few days they would be fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds. But if they had known, they would have gone anyway. That was the thing about humans that the aliens didn't understand yet. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't surrender. They got angry. And angry humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. High Examiner Vextel stepped through the airlock of the UES Indomitable with the confidence of someone who had studied thousands of different species. Behind him came representatives from 4 other major galactic powers, each one secretly hoping to find the weakness that would let them defeat humanity if war came. Vextal was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The Quellians were known throughout the galaxy as the smartest species alive. They had conquered dozens of worlds not through force but by simply being more intelligent than everyone else. "Welcome aboard," Captain Lee Hyun said, standing at attention with his senior officers beside him. "I hope your examination will be educational." "Oh, I'm certain it will be," Vextal replied in perfect human English. His voice was smooth and cold like ice water. War Prime Gorth pushed forward, making the deck plates vibrate under his massive feet. The Bruthan was nearly 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray skin that looked like armor. His people were warriors who believed that only the strong deserved to survive. "Your ship is smaller than I expected," Gorth rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "How do you expect to fight real battles with such a tiny vessel?" Lieutenant Kim Tae stepped forward before Captain Hyun could answer. "Sir, would you like me to show you our technical specifications?" "Yes," said Technician Krill, a smaller Quellian who carried a device that recorded everything he saw. "We are particularly interested in your weapon systems and defensive capabilities." Commander Park Sol watched the aliens carefully as Kim Tae led them toward the weapon controls. She noticed that they weren't just looking at the obvious things. They were studying the crew, watching how long it took people to respond to orders, counting how many humans were needed to operate each system. The tour began in the main weapons bay. Kim Tae showed them the plasma cannons and missile tubes, explaining how they worked without revealing anything classified. The aliens nodded and took notes, but they seemed more interested in other things. "Why do you have so many manual controls?" asked Ambassador Liss, an Etherian who looked like a beautiful woman made of golden light. "Most advanced species use automated systems for greater efficiency. We find that human oversight improves performance," Kim Tae replied carefully. "Our people are good at making quick decisions in combat situations." War Prime Gorth laughed, a sound like boulders falling down a mountain. "Quick decisions? Any computer can make decisions faster than biology. You cling to primitive methods because you haven't learned better." Dr. Yoon Na, who had been quietly following the group, made a note on her tablet. The Bruthan's dismissive attitude was interesting. He seemed genuinely convinced that human methods were inferior. The tour continued to the medical bay, where the aliens seemed surprised by how large and well-equipped it was. Most species kept their medical facilities small because their automated systems could handle most injuries. "You have facilities for major surgery," observed Vextal. "Do you expect your crew to suffer significant casualties?" "We prepare for all possibilities," Dr. Yunna replied. "Human medicine has always focused on saving lives rather than writing them off." The alien team exchanged glances. In their experience, species that expected heavy casualties were usually weak species that couldn't protect themselves properly. Next, they visited the engineering section. Here the aliens became very interested in the ship's power systems and life support. They asked detailed questions about backup systems and redundant controls. "You have 3 separate power grids," Technician Krill noted, scanning everything with his device. "This seems wasteful. Why not use one efficient system?" "If one system fails, we want the ship to keep fighting," Kim Tae explained. "We'd rather waste power than lose the ability to defend ourselves." War Prime Gorth snorted in disgust. "Paranoid thinking. Strong ships don't fail. Strong crews don't need backup plans." But Dr. Yunna noticed something else. While Gorth was being loudly dismissive, the other aliens were taking very detailed notes about the backup systems. They were particularly interested in how quickly humans could switch from one system to another. The tour moved to the crew quarters, where the aliens studied how humans lived aboard the ship. They were puzzled by the common areas where crew members gathered to eat and socialize. "Your people spend significant time in group activities," Vextal observed. "This reduces efficiency." "It improves morale," Commander Park Sol replied. "Happy crews fight better. Emotion is a weakness in combat," War Prime Gorth declared. "Warriors should rely on discipline and training, not feelings." Sergeant Major Choi Bo had been quiet during most of the tour, but now he spoke up. "With respect, sir, you've obviously never fought humans. Our emotions make us stronger, not weaker." The Bruthan turned to stare at the human Marine, his small red eyes glittering with interest. "You think your feelings make you dangerous?" "I think our anger makes us very dangerous," Choi Bo replied calmly. "Especially when someone threatens our friends." For the first time during the visit, War Prime Gorth looked genuinely interested in what a human had to say. "Anger is useful," he admitted. "But anger without strength is just noise." "I suppose we'll see," Choi Bo said with a slight smile. Dr. Yun-Na made another note. The Marine's comment had clearly struck a nerve with several of the aliens. They were taking even more detailed notes now. The final stop on the tour was the bridge, where the aliens studied the command and control systems. They were particularly interested in how information flowed between different stations and how quickly the crew could respond to threats. "Your communication systems are very robust," Vextal noted. "Multiple redundant channels, manual backup options. Again, this seems inefficient." "We've found that communication wins battles," Captain Hyun replied. "If our people can't talk to each other, they can't coordinate their actions." The alien team spent hours on the bridge asking questions about response times, crew coordination, and decision-making processes. They seemed especially interested in how humans handled unexpected situations. As the day ended, the aliens returned to their quarters on the nearby space station. Captain Hyun gathered his senior officers in his ready room for a private meeting. "Thoughts?" he asked. "They're not here for science," Dr. Yun-Na said immediately. Their questions were too focused on combat effectiveness and crew coordination. "They're studying us like an enemy, not like an interesting species." Commander Park Sol nodded. "They kept asking about response times and backup systems. That's not academic curiosity. That's intelligence gathering." Lieutenant Kim Tae looked worried. "They were particularly interested in our manual controls and redundant systems. It's like they were looking for ways to disable our ship quickly." Sergeant Major Choi Bo cracked his knuckles. "The Bruthan thinks we're weak because we rely on emotions and backup plans. He's wrong, but he won't figure that out until it's too late." Captain Hyun walked to the window and looked out at the alien ships docked at the station. There were more of them than there should be for a simple scientific mission. "Tomorrow they'll ask more questions," he said quietly. "Let them. Let them think they understand us. When the time comes, we'll show them what they missed." None of them slept well that night. They could all feel the storm coming, and they knew that their ship and crew would soon be tested in ways they had never imagined. But they were human, and humans had never been good at giving up without a fight. 3 days after the alien team finished their examination and left, Captain Lee Hyun was enjoying his first peaceful morning in weeks. The coffee was hot. The reports from his department heads were routine, and for once nothing seemed to be going wrong. Then the emergency beacon started screaming. "Captain, to the bridge." Lieutenant Kim Tae's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with urgency. "We're receiving a priority distress signal from the civilian ship New Horizon." Hyun ran to the bridge, still carrying his coffee mug. The main screen showed a star map with a blinking red dot marking the location of the distress signal. "Report," he ordered as he dropped into his command chair. "The New Horizon is a colony transport, carrying 8,000 civilians to the Kepler system." Commander Park Sol explained quickly. "They're reporting complete engine failure in the Tau Ceti system. Life support is failing. They have maybe 6 hours before people start dying." "How far?" Hyun asked. 4 hours at maximum speed," Kim Tae replied from his engineering station. "Do it," Hyun ordered. "Maximum speed to Tau Ceti. Send a message to the New Horizon that help is coming." The Indomitable's engines roared to life, pushing the ship toward hyperspace. Within minutes, they were racing through the void toward the stranded colony ship. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for a rescue operation. Nobody questioned the order to help. That was what humans did. They saved people, even if it meant putting themselves at risk. It was one of the things that made other species think humans were either very brave or very stupid. 4 hours later, the Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace near Tau Ceti, ready to begin rescue operations. What they found instead was the largest alien fleet any human had ever seen. "Contacts," shouted the sensor operator. "I count 43 alien vessels in a perfect attack formation around our position." The main screen lit up with dozens of ships representing all 5 species that had examined their vessel. Quellian science ships with powerful sensors, Bruthan war cruisers bristling with weapons, Etherian energy ships that glowed like small suns, insectoid hive ships that looked like floating cities, and the massive bulk of depth-dweller vessels designed for underwater combat. "Red alert," Commander Park Sol ordered. "All hands to battle stations." Alarms began wailing throughout the ship as the crew prepared for combat. In the weapons bay, Sergeant Major Choi Bo was already suiting up his Marines for boarding actions. In engineering, Kim Tae was bringing additional power systems online, systems the aliens had never been shown during their inspection. The communication system crackled to life, and High Examiner Vextal's cold voice filled the bridge. "Captain Lee Hyun of the human vessel Indomitable," he said with mock politeness. "How good of you to respond so quickly to our invitation." "There was no colony ship," Hyun said, his voice flat with controlled anger. "Of course not," Vextal replied. "We needed to get you here without Earth Command becoming suspicious." A distress call was the perfect solution. War Prime Gorth's rumbling laughter could be heard in the background. "Did you really think we were interested in your primitive technology for academic reasons? We came to study you because you've become a problem." Captain Hyun stood slowly from his chair, his hands clenched into fists. "What kind of problem?" "The kind of problem that wins battles they should lose," Ambassador Liss said, her golden voice now cold as winter. "The kind that expands into dangerous systems that other species avoid. The kind that makes the established powers of the galaxy nervous." Vextal took control of the conversation again. "Humanity has been in space for barely 2 centuries. Yet you've already defeated the Korthak Raiders, survived first contact with the Void Hunters, and established colonies in systems we thought were uninhabitable. Your unpredictable and unpredictable species are dangerous. So you decided to eliminate us," Commander Park Sol said. "Not eliminate," Vextal corrected. "Control. We demand that humanity withdraw from all contested systems and surrender your military fleet for inspection and disarmament. You will be allowed to exist, but only under our supervision." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Every human on board understood what they were being asked to do. They were being told to surrender everything that made them free. "And if we refuse?" Captain Hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. War Prime Gorth's voice boomed across the communication channel. "Then we demonstrate why the strong rule the weak. We have studied your ship, learned your capabilities, and planned this battle down to the smallest detail. You're outnumbered 43-1. Your weapons are inferior to ours. Your defenses are inadequate. Surrender now and your crew will be allowed to live." Dr. Yoon Na moved to her combat medical station, preparing for casualties. She had studied every species in the alien fleet and knew their capabilities. On paper, the aliens were right. The Indomitable couldn't possibly win against such overwhelming odds, but she also knew something the aliens didn't. She knew humans. Captain Hyun walked to the front of the bridge and stared at the massive alien fleet on the main screen. Ships that could destroy planets surrounded his single vessel like wolves circling a wounded deer. Any sane species would surrender immediately. You know, he said conversationally, you made one big mistake in your examination of our ship. What mistake? Vextal asked, sounding amused. You assumed we would be reasonable, Hyun replied. You assumed we would look at impossible odds and make the logical choice to surrender. He turned back to his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They were afraid. Only an idiot wouldn't be afraid facing such odds. But they were also angry, and angry humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. But we're not reasonable, he continued, his voice getting louder. We're the species that looked at an entire planet covered in hostile life forms and said, that looks like a nice place to live. We're the species that saw the vacuum of space and decided to build homes there. We're the species that gets more dangerous when you back us into a corner. Warprime Gorth snarled over the communication channel. Brave words from a dead man. Your courage will not stop our weapons. Captain Hyun smiled, and it was not a nice smile. You examined our ship for 3 days, and you learned absolutely nothing important about us. We learned everything we needed to know, Vextal said confidently. We know your weapons, your defenses, your crew capabilities. We have planned for every possible tactic you might use. No, Hyun said softly. You really didn't. He turned to his crew, who were all watching him with fierce pride. They knew they were probably going to die in the next few minutes, but they were going to make their enemies regret every second of it. All stations, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and facing impossible odds. The enemy expects us to surrender because that would be the smart thing to do. He paused, letting the words sink in. Unfortunately for them, we're humans, and humans don't do smart. We do necessary. Red alert all hands to battle stations. Let's show these aliens what they missed during their examination. The alien fleet began moving into attack formation, confident in their overwhelming advantage and detailed intelligence about human capabilities. They had studied their enemy carefully and planned the perfect trap. What they hadn't planned for was the fact that humans had never been very good at staying trapped. The battle began exactly as the aliens had planned. Their perfectly coordinated fleet moved into attack positions, while the single human ship sat motionless in the center of their trap, seemingly helpless against overwhelming odds. For 37 seconds, everything went according to their mathematical predictions. Then humanity started being human. The first surprise came when Sergeant Major Choi Bo launched what appeared to be a desperate boarding action against the nearest Quellian science vessel. Warprime Gorth laughed as he watched the small human pod streak toward the alien ship. Fools, he boomed over the communication channel. Our shields will deflect any weapons, and our automated defenses will destroy any boarding craft before they reach us. The Quellian ship's captain was equally confident. Their shields were the most advanced in the galaxy, and their point defense systems had never failed to stop incoming projectiles. They watched calmly as the human pods approached, waiting for them to be automatically destroyed. The pods hit the shields and exploded, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of trying to break through the barriers, they released clouds of metallic dust that spread across the shield generators like a fine web. What are they doing? High Examiner Vextal demanded from his command ship. Those particles won't damage our shields. Lieutenant Kim Tae's voice crackled across all frequencies as he activated systems the aliens had never seen during their examination. No, but they'll make lovely conductors for this. The Indomitable's sensor arrays, which the aliens had dismissed as primitive scanning equipment, suddenly blazed with energy. But they weren't scanning anymore. They were turned into massive electromagnetic pulse weapons, sending devastating waves of energy through the metallic particles clinging to the alien shields. The Quellian ship's automated systems began, failing in cascades as the electromagnetic pulse fried their delicate electronic systems. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapons went offline. Even their lights began going out as the pulse overloaded their power grid. Impossible, Vextal screamed. Sensor arrays cannot be weaponized like that. They can if you ignore safety protocols, Kim Tae replied cheerfully. Humans are really good at ignoring safety protocols when we need to. But the electromagnetic attack was just the beginning. As alien ships throughout the fleet began suffering system failures, the Indomitable revealed why humans preferred manual controls over automation. While alien crews stood helplessly as their automated systems crashed, human crew members calmly switched to manual operation. The redundant communication networks that the aliens had called inefficient allowed rapid coordination between departments as they implemented tactics that no civilized species would ever attempt. Commander Park Sol took personal control of the weapon systems, manually targeting specific points on alien vessels that Dr. Yoon Na had identified as weak spots. The ship's doctor had spent the entire examination period studying the alien visitors, learning everything she could about their physiology and technology. The aquatic depth dwellers rely on artificial gravity to keep their water-filled ships stable, she announced over the intercom. Target their gravity generators. The Etherian energy beings are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies, she continued, adjusting our pulse weapons accordingly. The Hive Collective insects communicate through pheromone signals, flooding their ships with random chemical compounds now. As each piece of information was relayed, human crew members adjusted their attacks to exploit the specific weaknesses of each alien species. The examination that was supposed to reveal human vulnerabilities had instead given humans detailed intelligence about their enemies. War Prime Gorth watched in growing horror as his technologically superior fleet began falling apart. The Bruthan war cruisers, with their advanced targeting systems, couldn't hit human ships that changed course in seemingly random patterns. Their quantum torpedoes, designed to track and destroy any target, missed repeatedly as the Indomitable performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. How are they dodging guided missiles? He roared at his weapons officer. I don't know, sir. Their ship is moving in patterns that make no tactical sense. What the Bruthans didn't understand was that humans had learned warfare from each other, and humans were really good at being unpredictable. The Indomitable's evasive patterns weren't based on mathematics or logic, they were based on Captain Hyun's 30 years of experience fighting other humans who were just as smart and determined as he was. High Examiner, Vextal tried desperately to salvage his perfect plan. All ships focus fire on the human vessel. Concentrate your remaining weapons. But concentration required coordination, and coordination required working communication systems. Half the alien fleet was still struggling with the effects of the electromagnetic pulse attack, while the other half was dealing with species-specific problems Dr. Yoon Na had created for them. The Depth Dwellers' ships were tumbling helplessly as their crews floated in zero gravity. The Etherians were suffering severe discomfort from the electromagnetic frequencies flooding their vessels. The Hive Collective was in chaos as random chemical signals confused their normally perfect coordination. Meanwhile, Sergeant Major Choibo's Marines were having the time of their lives. What the aliens had thought were desperate boarding actions were actually carefully planned sabotage missions. The Marines weren't trying to capture alien ships. They were systematically disabling their hyperspace engines to prevent retreat. Marine Team Alpha, hyperspace drive destroyed on Target 7, Choibo reported calmly over the radio. Marine Team Beta, propulsion systems offline on Target 12, came another report. Marine Team Gamma, life support compromised on Target 18, enemy crew evacuating to escape pods. War Prime Gorth finally understood what was happening, but it was too late. They're not trying to fight us. They're trying to trap us here. Captain Hyun's voice cut across all communication channels, calm and terrifying in its controlled fury. You wanted to examine a human warship. Congratulations, you're getting a complete demonstration. The Indomitable moved through the alien fleet like a shark among minnows, its weapons systematically dismantling ships that should have been far superior to it. Every backup system the aliens had dismissed as primitive redundancy proved crucial as human crew members manually operated damaged equipment and kept fighting long after automated systems would have shut down. Sir, the Quellian weapons officer shouted to Vextal. Our battle computers cannot predict their tactics. Every model we run shows them making suboptimal choices, but somehow those choices keep working. That's because you're fighting humans. Dr. Yoon Na's voice came over the communication system. We don't fight to be efficient. We fight to win, and we really, really hate being lied to. Ambassador Liss, her golden form flickering with distress, tried to open surrender negotiations. Human vessel, we propose an immediate ceasefire. This battle serves no purpose. You're right, Captain Hyun replied. This isn't a battle anymore. This is a lesson. And class isn't over yet. The remaining alien ships that could still maneuver tried to form a defensive formation, but their coordination was shattered. Ships designed to work together in perfect harmony found themselves unable to communicate effectively or predict what their allies would do next. Worse, they were beginning to realize that the humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to teach a lesson that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Every alien ship that surrendered was allowed to survive, but every ship that continued fighting was systematically destroyed. The message was clear: attack humans if you want, but be prepared for the consequences. As more alien ships fell silent or began broadcasting surrender signals, the survivors started to understand the terrible truth. They had examined a human warship and learned everything about its technology, its weapons, and its apparent weaknesses. But they had learned nothing about the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: their refusal to accept defeat, no matter how hopeless the situation appeared. The silence that fell over the battlefield was more terrifying than any weapon. Of the 43 ships that had formed the perfect trap, only 16 were still capable of fighting. The rest floated dead in space, their crews either captured or evacuating in escape pods. High Examiner Vextal stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The mathematical certainty of victory had become a nightmare of cascading failures. His flagship systems were barely functioning, held together by emergency repairs that kept failing faster than his crew could fix them. Status report, he whispered to his science officer. Sir, we've lost 60% of our fleet. Our remaining ships are scattered and can't coordinate effectively. The human vessel appears to be completely undamaged. Vextal looked at the main screen, where the UES Indomitable hung in space like a predator that had just finished hunting. It showed no signs of the battle that had just destroyed the largest alien fleet assembled in decades. How? He asked nobody in particular. How did one primitive ship defeat a technologically superior force? War Prime Gorth's battered voice crackled over the communication system from his damaged cruiser. Because we're idiots, he growled. We studied their ship and learned nothing about their people. Captain Lee Hyun's image appeared on every surviving alien vessel's main screen. He sat calmly in his command chair, looking like a teacher who had just finished explaining a particularly difficult lesson to slow students. Your examination is now complete, he said quietly. I hope you learned something useful. High Examiner Vextal found his voice. We surrender. Please allow us to evacuate our remaining crews. Of course, Hyun replied. We're not monsters. But before you go, let me explain what you missed. During your 3-day study of our ship, the alien commanders listened in stunned silence as the human captain began his lecture. You examined our technology and found it inferior to yours. You were right. Your weapons are more powerful, your shields are stronger, and your computers are faster than ours. You studied our tactics and found them inefficient. You were right again. We use more people to do jobs that automation could handle better. We keep backup systems that waste power and space. You analyzed our crew and concluded that we rely too heavily on emotion and personal relationships. Once again, you were completely correct. Vextal felt a chill run through his body. Then how did you defeat us? Captain Hyun smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression any of the aliens had ever seen. Because you made one crucial error in your analysis. You assumed that superior technology always wins battles, doesn't it? Ambassador Liss asked from her damaged vessel, her golden form flickering weakly. No, Commander Parksall answered, stepping into view beside her captain. Wars are won by whoever wants victory more than the other side wants to avoid defeat. Lieutenant Kim Tae joined them. You studied our backup systems and called them wasteful. But when your automated systems failed, your ships became helpless. When our systems failed, we fixed them with spare parts and determination. Dr. Yoon Na appeared on screen next. You dismissed our emotions as weakness, but our anger made us fight harder, and our loyalty to each other made us coordinate better than any computer program. Finally, Sergeant Major Choi Bo stepped forward. You thought our manual controls were primitive. But when your crews couldn't operate damaged systems, we kept fighting with broken equipment and sheer stubbornness. War Prime Gorth's rumbling laugh filled the communication channel. but now it sounded tired rather than confident. We analyzed everything except the one thing that mattered most. What's that? Vextel asked. Human nature, Gorth replied. We can study their weapons and their ships and their tactics, but we can't measure their refusal to quit. We can't calculate their ability to find solutions that shouldn't work. We can't predict their willingness to try impossible things just to prove they're possible. Captain Hyun nodded approvingly. The Bruthen understands. Your examination taught you about our technology, but it couldn't teach you about our character. And character wins wars, not weapons. The remaining alien ships began broadcasting surrender signals as their crews prepared to abandon their vessels. But Captain Hyun wasn't finished with his lesson. However, he continued, this doesn't have to end in defeat for all of you. You came here because you were afraid of humanity's expansion and unpredictability. I understand that fear. High Examiner Vextel felt a spark of hope. You do? Of course. If I saw a new species winning battles they shouldn't win and expanding into systems other people avoided, I'd be worried too. Fear is a reasonable response to the unknown. Then what do you propose? Ambassador Liss asked. Partnership instead of conquest, Hyun replied. You're right that humans are unpredictable and stubborn. But we're also loyal to our friends and absolutely vicious to our enemies. Which would you rather be? The question hung in space while the alien commanders considered their options. They had come here to eliminate a threat, only to discover that the threat was much more dangerous than they had imagined. But the humans were offering them a choice. War Prime Gorth was the first to respond. The Bruthen Empire would be honored to call humans allies rather than enemies. Any species that can turn a hopeless battle into a victory deserves our respect. Ambassador Liss flickered more brightly as her energy form stabilized. The Etherian Collective agrees. We prefer cooperation to conflict, and humans have demonstrated that conflict with them would be unwise. One by one, the other alien species agreed to the alliance. They had learned the hard way that humanity was not a problem to be solved, but a force of nature to be respected. High Examiner Vextal was the last to speak. The Quellian Empire accepts your offer of partnership, but I must ask, will Earth Command approve of your actions here today? Captain Hyun's grin widened. Admiral Chen is going to be furious that we started an interstellar incident without permission, but when he sees the alliance treaties you're going to sign, he'll probably give us all medals. Alliance treaties? Vextel asked. Of course. You can't attack the human military and then just leave. That would set a bad example for other species who might have similar ideas. No, you're going to become our allies publicly, with full military cooperation agreements. And if we refuse? Captain Hyun's expression became serious. Then you'll learn what happens when you make humans really angry. Today's battle was just a demonstration. If you want to see what human warships can do when they stop being polite, keep being a threat to our people. The aliens looked at their destroyed fleet and decided that they had seen enough human capabilities for one day. 3 hours later, the first official alliance treaties between humanity and the major galactic powers were signed aboard the UES Indomitable. The ceremony was broadcast throughout the galaxy, along with the battle footage that showed exactly why the aliens had suddenly become so eager for human friendship. As the alien representatives prepared to return to their homeworlds, High Examiner Vextel approached Captain Hyun for a private conversation. You planned this entire battle, didn't you?
He asked quietly.
From the moment we requested our examination, you knew what we were really doing. We suspected, Hyun admitted, but we couldn't prove it, and we couldn't refuse without appearing hostile. So we let you gather your intelligence and spring your trap. Knowing you might die? Knowing we would win, Hyun corrected. You studied our ship for 3 days and learned everything about our technology. But you never learned the most important thing about humans. What's that? Captain Hyun looked out at the stars, where human ships were already patrolling systems that had been hostile territory just hours before. We're really good at turning other people's traps into our opportunities. As the alien fleet limped home to explain their new alliance agreements to their governments, a message was sent throughout the galaxy. It was simple and clear. Humanity welcomes peaceful contact with all species. However, please note that hostile examinations of human vessels may result in involuntary participation in practical demonstrations of human military capabilities. Side effects may include sudden enthusiasm for diplomatic solutions and long-term friendship treaties. The message was signed by Captain Lee Hyun, commanding officer of the UES Indomitable, and endorsed by the newly formed Galactic Defense Alliance. Nobody in the galaxy ever tried to examine a human warship uninvited again.